Hello, my name is Cornell Green, and I am the Failure Guy. Welcome to the podcast. On this episode of the Failure Guy podcast, my guest is Tim Gilliland of Chameleon Studios. Tim, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the conversation.
Well, hello to you, and thank you for having me. This is a pleasure and an honor that you have me on here. So I appreciate this.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, and that's nice you say. And I'd just like to say to people that Tim has the privilege of being the first guest in season 2 that is not a member of my business mastermind community. And just by way of a brief introduction before I let you introduce yourself, Tim and I are a member of a men's group on Facebook called the CBX Nation, which is for men over 50 who are looking to get themselves in good shape, and not just good physical shape, but good shape all around. And we've taken up the term, we refer to ourselves as maximized men, as opposed to toxic masculinity. We've taken on maximized masculinity, which are men who are not afraid to admit their vulnerabilities, that they have emotions, that sometimes they need help and support, and that, we're human beings and not just guys with, Y chromosomes in our body. Tim is also one of the moderators of that group, and also just an all-around stand-up guy. He posts several times a day, and he always gives us great tips on alternative approaches, not just to exercises, but just on, just living our lives, trying to live our best lives and making every day a great day. So I thank you, Tim. We kind of shout at each other, usually virtually in comments on Facebook. So it's great to have this opportunity to sort of be face-to-face, even though we're not in the same place, and to have a conversation for a little bit more than a few minutes, and in a one-way kind of Facebook Live. So now, I'd like you to introduce yourself. Tell folks about who Tim Gilliland is, about yourself, your business, and all of that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you again for this, this opportunity. But yeah, my name is Tim Gilliland. I live in Dallas, Texas. Was born in Oklahoma and moved down here for business because Oklahoma's not a place for graphics, and I'm a graphic illustrator, designer. So we came down to the big city as opposed to my little 500 population.
Wow.
So yeah, from little town to big is definitely a difference. And if it was up for my wife, we would be living in New York right now.
New York is nice. It's not everything it's cracked up to be in either the positive or negative. It's a nice place. It's my hometown, and I love it. But see, and this is what I love about my guests. And as we were discussing before we turned the cameras on, I don't do a pre-interview. I knew you were from Oklahoma, but you were from a town with a 500 population. Did I hear that right?
500 population. I graduated with, I think, 28 students when I graduated. Yeah, so it was the school was so small that we walked by the kindergarten on the way to lunch. So we had everybody from kindergarten kids all the way to seniors.
Wow.
There.
You want to hear something funny? My graduating class in high school was over 750 people.
Yeah.
So I graduated from my grade in high school with more people than your entire town that you grew up in.
Yeah, right. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it's just a country town that, mostly farmers. It's pretty much basically all that. And then when Walmart came in, basically the town over basically shut down all the little towns around the downtown area. So downtown was just pretty much a ghost town by the time I left.
Wow. And that's the thing. I mean, look, as convenient as it is, I'm not going to lie, to order things online from Walmart and to go into one place and everything's there. But that is one of the things, especially as an advocate for small businesses and solo entrepreneurs, that's one of the things that does irk me about things like Walmart and Amazon, is that they shut down the small businesses, the mom and pop shops just get crushed, like a grape. And it's and part of that is the lifeblood of a small town, and not even just a small town. Even here in New York City, the neighborhood stores, the corner bodega, as we call them, the small grocery store that's not a part of a chain, that gives the flavor and the culture of the community. And so it's a shame when everything just looks, the same. Another strip mall, another, Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's and Walmart, and It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. And I've always had that self-employed entrepreneur mindset that I wanted to do because when I first started working, I was down at the local gas station, pumping gas, changing tires for I don't know $4 an hour, something like that. That was just like I'm going. This is crazy. I don't want this. My dad, he had a second job that he painted cars. He was a auto mechanic, and he would paint cars when he wasn't working at the power company. And I saw how by working for yourself you can, make more. And so I started looking to see what I could do there in town. And my sister actually, her and her husband worked for farmers moving their hay off of their fields into their barns or onto a truck where they would sell down here to Texas. And so I went into that line of work thinking that that's what I was going to do was just haul hay the rest of my life, which was a profitable business because at the time we would get 25 cents a bale for each hay bale you would pick up and put in the barn. You would get 25 cents for that. And so my boss, that's what he would get. He would pay me, the truck hand, 8 cents a bale, and then the guy I would help. I would have 8 cents more to give to whoever wanted to work. So some people would have two people help them. Some people would just have one person, so they would make more. So I would
right,
always just do just the two of us. Some people
right.
would do 30, but 8 cents a bale back then, back in the late '60s, early '70s, was $80 a day if I got 1,000 bales,
Okay.
which
And you could
was
do
good
that many
money then.
bales. You could do that many bales in a day. You could do 1,000 bales in a day.
1,000 bales, yeah. Well, not everybody could do
Okay.
that,
Right.
uh,
Okay.
but I would always try to find the best help, and he and I would shoot for the 1,000. Sometimes we would get 1,500.
Oh
My,
wow.
my, my top my top day was like 1,560,
Wow.
which was a great day. Uh,
Okay.
having that thought, and then when 80 came, 1980, uh, we had a drought and no hay. So then I went to work for an oil rigs. There was oil
Oh
rigs
wow.
there, so I went to be a worm on deck and drilling oil, and I did not like that at all. So then I said, well, I got to do something else because,
Yeah.
and the round bells started happening, no more
Ah.
square bells.
Right.
That kind of put me out of business.
Right.
So then we decided, well, let's go to see. Then I found out that there was this guy at OSU Tech that was teaching commercial art. And so that's when I started getting into it. I said, well, I can draw. Let me go
Okay.
see what this is all about.
Okay. So
And then
before
I
we get into
realized,
that, I just wanted to ask, intervene. You see a lot of movies, that movie with Mark Wahlberg and all that kind of jazz, and of course those are stylized. So you were actually on an oil rig. You actually worked on the rig itself.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, what was that?
I was what they
What was that like?
called the worm.
Okay.
But the worm was the lowest guy on the totem pole. So they would have me do the stupidest stuff.
Wow.
They would. It wasn't my driller because so there's a pusher, there's a driller, and then there's the deckhands. So the pusher, his son was my driller, my direct boss, which was younger than me at the time, and I made the mistake then saying, okay, this is only my summer job. I'm not going to do this full time.
Right.
And so he had me climb to the top of the deck to take a 5 gallon bucket of water up to water the pulleys, which there
Wow.
is no pulleys up there that need watering.
Oh my goodness.
And then then he looks at me and says, "You know, you look pretty stout. You think you can pick up one of these mud bags? They're like 80-pound mud bags that they mix to lubricate the pipe." I said, "You think you can pick one of those over your head?" I said, "Sure, I can pick one of those up." I pick it up, and he takes a knife and cuts it open
Oh, of course, of
all over
course.
me, all over me.
Wow.
And it it just jokes
Yeah,
like that
the
that would do
hazing,
on me.
yeah, sort of
Hazing,
thing.
yeah, I got a lot
Yeah.
of hazing. Uh,
Wow.
uh, but it paid good money, and it paid my next my next year in school.
Okay.
But it wasn't something that I wanted to keep doing. Little dangerous.
Okay. Didn't see that as a lifetime career.
No, no.
Well, I mean, look. Let's be honest. There's not a whole lot of people who've worked on an oil rig. That's a very, like you said, it's a dangerous job,
Yeah,
which is why it pays, because it's hazardous. It's extremely
yeah.
hazardous. I mean, you can lose your life out there,
And,
and
and the drilling part wasn't that bad unless she was tripping. So get this. So we had pushers, we had trips, and we had 30-foot joints and 5-gallon bucket of dope, which was gluey stuff that they put in the boat. So that's why there's so many drug dealers out there on the oil rigs right now, because that they had what they thought was pushers, drillers, and 30-foot joints.
it's like, no, no, we might use those terms, my friends, but not what you think it means. That's pretty funny. So then you end up in art school. Was it so?
Yes.
Did you always draw? Did you always have a facility for art before you started?
I've always drawn. My mom was a artist, a painter. My dad, he did more the line of technical drawing. So when he made everything. He could do anything. He could draw, paint, build, but he would draw out what he's going to do. So if he takes a car on, he draws it up. So I have a lot about that background, that technical know-how about how to do that kind of thing. And so with those two there, I wanted to figure out how I could apply that, in my life. And so that's why I said, well, let me go check out this art school, because I heard about one of the teachers was real acceptable to my situation, which we haven't talked to about yet.
Right, right.
But
We're gonna get to that.
but
Yeah.
so I went and met with him, and he said, "Yeah, this sounds like a great place for you to come." And so I did that, and realized everything that's out in the world has to be designed,
Right.
drawn, packaged, or created. And I said, "Well, I can do that."
Right.
And so
Now, the fascinating thing in hearing you talk about your parents' skills and facilities is you kind of got both the sort of, if you will, the left brain and the right brain. You got the
yeah,
creative, artistic style. Then you got the more technical, drafting and mechanical kind of style. But you got both of
yes.
those influences growing up.
Yeah, yeah. And my mom was a school teacher, so she was actually at that little school that I would see her almost every
Ah,
day,
okay, wow,
because she was first grade teacher. Even though I didn't have her in first grade, they had to bring another teacher in to teach me, and the class, I guess, was big enough that they had two first grades then.
okay,
But no, no, and she was a very smart lady. My dad was smart in the technical side of things,
right,
but like me, he was dyslexic,
okay, okay,
and he didn't know it then. I didn't know it at that time. That's what I had.
right,
I just
right,
didn't learn the same way that everybody else did.
right.
You know.
Okay, so, well, now you've sort of let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. So
Yes.
I guess let's get to probably the topic of our conversation. So
Okay.
first of
Okay.
all,
Yeah.
everyone has heard the term, but for the benefit of, well, for myself, because I always love learning things in these conversations, and for the benefit of those listening and watching in podcast land, what actually is dyslexia? Is it a thing? Is
Well,
it a spectrum of things?
it's a spectrum because there's so many different levels of it, and it affects different aspects. So some of my kinfolks cannot do math at all. The numbers are just spinning in their head. My issue is more writing and reading. I have what they determined was about a fourth grade level of reading and writing. Math is okay, but it was that other issues that when I was going through school at like sixth grade, they held me back in sixth grade and they sent me to what they called special ed
Special
back
ed,
then
yeah.
because they didn't know
Yeah.
what dyslexic was then. And that whole time it was a waste of my time because they didn't really teach it then. So what happened, my mom took it on and did as much research as she could to help me throughout the rest of the years with that. It's still, it's how you work around it.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and like I said, there's different levels and different aspects of things. I still have a bad issue with uh, reading and writing. With that, I just the words are just jambled. Can't see it, and especially if I get a little stress come on, I just lose it. I just can't
Okay.
see, can't
Okay.
picture, can't
Right.
visualize on that.
So
And-
it's not a intellect conversation issue because as I've known you, you're actually a very intelligent person. So it sounds like it's more a perceptual issue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had a doctor one time tell me that he was born with his little finger bent over. His last knuckle was bent, and he said that's what you have in your brain. There's something in there that has a little thing
A little
off.
kink in
Everything
it.
else is good. A little kink, and that's what's throwing all this off.
Right.
And so that and you just have to work around it. And I can remember when I was like 14 or so, and when they just started to realize that this was happening, I could hear my parents talking. They said, "What are we going to do with this kid? He can't. He's not learning like the rest of the kids. He's not going to be able to do anything.
Wow.
We need to figure out: are we going to keep him here with us, or what's going to happen?" And so
And how old were
it,
you when this was happening?
that was about 13 or 14.
Wow. Well, that must
And,
have. I can't imagine what that would have made you feel like just emotionally overhearing such a
yeah.
conversation.
Well, I mean, it was, because we didn't know, we didn't have a name for it really, even then. We didn't realize until later that it was a dyslexic situation. And so, uh, I could paint cars. I could do all the things, other things. It's just that when it
Right.
came to reading and writing is what I couldn't do. So, I have to figure out how to learn other ways. I had to learn how to, way back then, I bought me one of those Franklin spellers that you would start to put it in and it would try to
Oh,
guess what you're
yeah.
trying to do. And then it would give me all these choices. And I would say, well, I can't read any of these other choices. I don't even know
Yeah,
which
you're
one
giving
it
me the
is.
choices. The problem is I'm having trouble comprehending what the words are. So give me a bunch of words. I can't comprehend the words. You're not helping me.
Yeah. So that's why I decided to go into the art. And at the time when I was doing the art, all I had to do was make the thing look pretty. Make
Right.
it look good. And I would draw the letters back then before we even had computers or anything. I would do what they call a comp of the ad. So they would have an ad and it would have photographs and the copy and the logos and whatever else. And I didn't have to worry about that. They supplied that to me. They said, okay, here's what it's supposed to say. Put this on the page, make it look good. And so, I didn't have to worry about reading or writing. They supplied that to me then.
Right, right. Okay. Well, that must have been. Now, here's the thing, because a lot of us, I'm going to presume to speak on behalf of the audience out there. We hear about the terms. Maybe we hear that some famous people, like I know off the top of my head, Cher is famously dyslexic.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Now, see, that's amazing. I did not know that until, like the kids say, I was today years old when I found that out. Given his accomplishments,
Yeah.
one would not imagine. And the reason I was mentioning this is because it's not a matter of intellectual capability. It's
Right.
not that you're not as smart as everyone else. It's just that your brain has trouble processing, in your case, processing language in the written form. You understand what all the words mean. Obviously, you're very articulate. You're very well spoken. There's nothing that I say to you say, I don't understand what you just said. But trying to pick it up from the graphic form. Now, just since we're here talking about the experience of failure and how that affects your life, that must have been, I would imagine, very frustrating to know that you are trying your level best. And you know inside yourself, you're like, wait a minute, I know that my brain understands the words. I don't even understand what it is I don't understand about why I'm having this trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so much of my life right there, and that even flowed into my art. When we would get an assignment, I felt less than everybody there because of that. What I would do, I would go back to my room when we would say, okay, Dave, you need to draw this one particular thing, and have it for us tomorrow. I would go home and I would do 5 of them or 6 of them. I would do as many as I could instead of not just that one, because I wanted to overshadow or
Right.
over
Right.
work.
To overachieve in what you had a prowess in, to
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
compensate for this.
Right. And I still do that when I get assignment now. They say, okay, we need this design. I'll give them 3 or 4. I still do that, because it's the process of getting through to that next design, which they might pick.
Right.
They don't always pick the last one. They might pick the first one,
Right.
but they have
Give
that
them
option.
options. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I don't want to give too many options because I don't want them to think I don't know what is good.
exactly. So it's like, oh, you can't make up your mind. You don't know good from bad. No, it's like,
Yeah,
no, I'm giving you a range of choices just so you can see. And also it kind of shows your ability. It's like, I'm not just going to do this one thing and that's all I can do. I can give you a variety,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
I think that actually everybody in some way or another is compensating for imagined inadequacies. I mean, I was very, very intellectually developed. I was up until junior high school. I was the top kid in my grade, until the last year, and but I wasn't very popular. I was literally your pencil neck geek. I mean, when I went into the Air Force at 19, I weighed 98 pounds. I'm not even kidding you. I did not weigh over 3 digits until going into the military with the PT and the chow in the mess hall. Put a little bit of bulk on me.
Yeah.
I was not popular with the girls. I was not athletic. I was a bookworm. And so I overcompensated, like, say, okay, you know what? You want to make fun of me? You want to mock and ridicule me? You can all choke on my dust. I'm number 1, and now it's just a contest between you guys from 2 through last. That's what I'm going to do. And even now in my profession, I've been an IT professional for 31 years. All I have is a high school diploma. In fact, my joke is that college is for people who aren't smart enough to teach it to themselves. But there is still that part, even though I am past the point where I have to prove anything or compensate. I'm not a kid in 3rd grade, where the kids are making fun of me, calling me Poindexter or Brainiac. I'm not the kid in the 6th grade where the girl waited until we were at lunch in the schoolyard to laugh at my anonymous love note that I wrote to her, because she not only thought it was ridiculous, but she wanted to have her friends there so she could laugh in my face at it. And again, I'm 63 years old. This happened when I was, what, 11? But some
Yeah.
things kind of stay with us.
It stays with you sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely there always. That I'm always struggling with it. And with the computer age, I have spell check. I can talk in my phone. Okay,
Right.
and I'm always in that when I'm emailing or texting anybody. I talk it, and
Right.
and and I still have to go back and double check it, because sometimes with this also I have this speech impediment. I have a little lisp. A lot of people just think I'm from another country, but with the name like Gilliland, they asked me. They said, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
I said,
So
"Well, it's a little island called Gilliland. It's right in between Scotland and Ireland.
That's pretty funny. Ah, okay, you have those little, because you, like you said, you get it so often, you just come up with a little, and even that's kind of like by way of compensating.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then even when I say we, I got married last year of school,
Mm,
uh, and when we got to talk about this part of it because finding the right person is everything.
yes.
I'm thinking that if it wasn't for my wife, which is in the other room, she can hear me talking about it right now. She has made me a better man in so many different ways. So when we went out to get my job, I didn't even graduate. Uh, my professor said that because when I was at school, I was under a grant because of my disability, and I had to do so many hours in regular schooling and then the art side of it. He said, what you really need to do is work on your portfolio. Don't worry about those other classes. My
Mm,
professor told me this.
right.
He said you're not going to do very well with that because of my disability.
Right.
Get that art done, and that will get that will land you your job. So that's what I did. So
Right.
I wouldn't have graduated because
Right.
I wasn't going to those other classes. So once we started getting to that point where now we got to get out and get a job, I went on 52 interviews
Wow.
before I found the job that we wanted. Well, I got a couple of offers before that, but I was looking at big agencies, smaller studios, some in-house departments, and some I liked, some they liked me, most of them I didn't like.
Mm,
So we ended up finding something in Oklahoma City for a couple of years, but without having my wife there to help me support me with that and line them all up and do that was just such a big help then at the point of that to get through the whole interview process, which was even the portfolio contest. They always give the seniors a portfolio contest, and I was so poor I couldn't afford a portfolio to carry all
wow.
my stuff in. I had
Wow.
two pieces of cardboard,
Wow.
and that's what won. I still won the portfolio contest
Ha!
that year, and the judges said, you should use some of this money and go buy yourself a portfolio.
Now here's the thing. I got to ask you. Like in the original version of the Failure Guy website, I had some famous failures. J.K. Rowling and Stephen King were famously rejected by so many publishers that they submitted their original book to. The original Harry Potter in J.K.'s case and Carrie, and talking about your wife. Carrie was rejected by every publisher that Stephen King submitted to the point that he took the manuscript and he threw it in the trash. And his wife, Tabitha King, took that portfolio out of the trash, had to retype the cover page because some spaghetti got on it, and she sent it into, I believe I'm not sure of this, but I believe the publisher was Simon and Schuster that finally accepted Carrie. And of course, we know the rest is history. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the office of all those other publishers that said, wait a minute, we rejected that guy. The guy who's basically a money machine. If you put a book with his name on it, it's going to be a bestseller. What were we thinking? But the importance of having a partner. Now, I've been through situations in my life after I got out of the Air Force in the early '80s, and I was kind of a vagabond. And I went to a town and I literally went down the main street and went into every store just looking for work, regardless of whether it looked like I was qualified or not. But 52 interviews?
Yeah.
How do you, after 12 or 20, how do you even keep going on?
Well, we knew we had a good portfolio. We won the portfolio contest, so we just had to make the right connection at the right place. And so we was getting rejected, quite a bit, but we just kept saying there's got to be something out there that we can, get going. And then like the first when we landed a job, I still say we, but it was they was looking for somebody that had 5 years experience, and
Okay.
that's what they hired. And so right there, the right guy for the right place, and so that right there was told me right there. I have the tools. I have what they need. It's
Right.
just
Didn't have the
finding
experience.
yeah.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. If you were a single guy when this was happening, do you think you could have gone through 51 either rejections or no pass, no sale before you finally landed the one that stuck?
No, I really don't think. I count a lot of my big plan to move out of the town of 500 was two towns over towards Oklahoma City, where there was a oil company that had an art department. That's what my goal was, to
Right.
move there and be working in their
Right.
internal department.
Right.
And
That was moving up to the big time for you.
that was moving up. That was moving up big time. I was like, yeah, this is good. My wife looked at that and said, no, we you are too good. You got to get bigger hopes. Let's get bigger than that. And so then we went to we was trying to find a place in Tulsa, because Tulsa is more creative than Oklahoma City, but it was still in Oklahoma. Her family was from that side of that side of the state, and so we were trying to get in Tulsa. On the way back to my home, we dropped to Oklahoma City a couple of times and finally found the job there,
Okay.
and did that. And then we realized that still wasn't good enough. We needed bigger and better. And so one of the classmates that graduated before me moved down to Dallas.
Okay.
And he would call me several times a month, said, you need to move down to Dallas. You need to come down here. It's going big, And then finally, he had a job opening with his boss to come down. And so they paid me down, brought me down, and paid my way. But funny story about that, though, is that it was a software company, software advertising. The company just did advertising for software. So Microsoft, a lot of the
Okay.
companies, they're not even around now. But
Okay.
when they hired my direct boss, the guy that I went to school with, they asked him, "Do you know anything about software?" And he goes, "Yeah, sweaters, jeans, shirts. I know everything about wearing something soft."
Wow.
So I was dropped into that. So remember that little Mac that was about this big, the Macintosh little computer. They bought one of those in, because
Oh, okay.
I was always a marker renderings, drawing and things like that. So they bought one of those in for us to work on, to see if we liked it, to do the computer graphics. And it took me 8 hours to do one little stinking logo on it. And I said, this stinks. This won't work.
Yeah.
I got to go back the other way. But finally, now we got it working.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's interesting to have a partner in crime, someone that inspires you to aspire to bigger than you could imagine. I mean, I'm single and never married, but in my case, that was my mom, who raised us always with the belief that we could achieve anything that we could set our sights to, and to always dream big. As you said,
Yeah.
what's the worst that could happen if you go for a shot is that you don't make it. And that's
Yeah.
really the nature of the Failure Guy podcast, is to understand failure. Like I say, failure is just not getting the outcome that you expected. It's not defeat. It's not a deficiency. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or you're lesser than. Like I say, you are never a failure. You may experience failure, but you are just the person that you are. If
Yeah.
you fail, try again.
Yeah, and what you talk about your mom is so nice. The way you do, you remind me of me the way I feel about my mom, and how she was supportive and
Yeah.
helped, even though she knew that there was something there that couldn't be fixed. She did her part to help me handle it or realize what we can do to work around
Yeah.
it. And so that was, that I get a connection with you with this.
Yeah, and the connection's even deeper because I have a brother. I have two brothers, a younger brother and then my youngest brother. And the brother right after me, who's 4 years younger than me, they tried to assign him to special ed. And my mom wasn't a teacher, but she was having none of it. As you said, she did her research. She looked into all of the different types of schools that were available in the New York City public school system. She said, no, the problem isn't that my son needs special ed. You need to figure out the modality that's going to help him learn it. This was a kid that they wanted to put in the short bus and say was a special ed. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina now, and he on the weekend reads the Sunday edition of the New York Times. Brother, I don't read the Sunday New York Times. Okay, and I was the so-called genius level kid, and this is something just to keep in touch with New York and to keep in touch with all the politics, art, science, and all this kind of stuff. And he just does it, because he chooses to. So this
Yeah.
is, like you say, a mother's belief in who we are and what we're capable of, and never settling for less than what they know our full potential is, whatever we've got to
Yeah.
do to accomplish it.
Yeah. Well, and with that, I mean, with my mom's support that I had from that, because I have siblings and I have nieces and nephews that all got trickled down with this dyslexia. Some
Mm.
of them are worse, some of it are a little better, but they all did not have my mom to support
Ah,
them. I mean, they had my sisters or something that they might have had the same issue, or their dads which were, you know, not the greatest to be. And so they're still back at that hometown. They're still doing whatever they can to get by. They're not could see the foresight in what they could accomplish. Because some of them outside of their dyslexic, I know one of mine could take a motor apart completely
wow,
and just put it back together again. And
wow.
he couldn't read, anything, but he's still doing
Right,
that same kind of thing.
right,
He's not
right.
hasn't got that.
Right. So he's got the mechanical dexterity and the insight and the understanding of how parts work and fit together. Let me ask you this. Do you think, since you say there's a prevalence of this in your family, do you think it's environmental? Do you think it's genetic that this shows up?
My dad had it. My dad had it, so he passed that down, and that's what the doctors say.
Mm,
It comes through your parents, and it comes down. So, you know, if I had kids, which I don't, I could possibly pass that down
right.
to my. And it's there's a workaround, and there's so much more out there now. Like we said, Tom. I mean, he's gone through
Yeah.
some deep schooling and
Yeah.
learned how to learn.
Right.
If it's memory, if it's repetitive, if it's
Right.
just a different way of learning,
Right.
you can still do it. And so
Yeah.
so that
And
that's
he's an actor, so he's got to memorize
yeah.
scripts word for word. This is not chopping cheese or slicing meat at the deli, And some of these scripts are very complicated and very involved. I wonder if he has them recorded for himself, or has he just learned to deal with the reading facility?
Well, I mean, I get recordings. What I used to do that when I had some kind of speech or some kind of something I had to learn. I would have either my wife read it to me on a recording, my mom read it to me on a recording, and I would just play it back and back and back over to memorize it, pretty much.
Right, right, right. And see, this is fascinating, Tim, and this is why I'm glad that you joined me here in the conversation. And this is why, again, I have the Failure Guide podcast, because I just want to openly and honestly talk about things that people tend to shy away from. People hear dyslexia. I mean, there's people out there who don't want to admit it, if you will, because they don't want to be looked at as lesser or other. But as you're seeing, and as I know, because I know you for years through the men's group, you know A, there's nothing wrong with you, and B, you've I don't know if it's okay if you can. I don't know if you have any NDAs or whatever, but you have worked for some pretty impressive global corporations in terms of the graphic design work that you do.
Yeah, yeah. Even the job that we moved down to Dallas for, it was a small agency, like I said, the software agency, but the boss set that agency up to be mirroring. I don't know if you know of Ogilvy and Mather
Oh
advertising,
yeah, oh yeah, my gosh!
but
Come on,
okay,
everything has their headquarters here in New York.
Yes,
So
yeah, yeah.
Ogilvy is
So,
one
so,
of
so,
the.
so we based the whole agency. We worked it the way they worked. We bought all of the Ogilvy books. We read all the, so we
Oh,
set up there. So Ogilvy looked at that. They don't have an office here in Dallas. They came to Dallas and bought us out.
oh
And
wow.
I started working for Ogilvy and Mather.
Wow, wow. That's, I mean, like you say, there's not a lot of people if you don't know the inside baseball of it, but they're the, they're the Goldman Sachs of the advertising agency. When you
Yeah,
say advertising, you're pretty much talking about Ogilvy
Ogilvy and
Mather.
Mather.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
fact,
On in.
a lot of television shows like Bewitched, for example, you know,
Yeah.
they're modeling,
Uh-huh.
the company that Darren worked for as that kind of a thing, that level
Yeah,
of
right,
the
right.
ad
Yeah,
work.
and back then it was really a big deal. We would go to their Houston office for holiday parties. They would fly us down in two different jets because they don't want all of us in one jet in
Oh,
case.
right. In case, yeah, you don't want to lose all of the brain trust in one shot. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So we did that, but then we started growing. They started getting clients in. Then they started bringing in their own creative directors and art directors, and then they let all the old guys go. So they let us all off. Uh,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
but
Yeah,
but
that happens a lot in
before
the corporate world. Yeah.
yeah, but for several years I worked for William Mather. So and it was a kind of cool thing to have that on my resume. But then for then we said, okay, what do I do now? I mean, do we go back out and start interviewing again, or then I decided, well, why don't we try this self-employed freelance kind of thing, because we know more now than we did even then. So I just started working for all the big agencies here in town.
Okay.
Uh, doing, there were so many there, and then finally one, it's called Tracy Locke, which is, it's still a pretty decent sized agency, but it's mostly based here in Dallas. So I went to work for them for their in their Pepsi department. So that they had PepsiCo, and I would be their artist and draw up all of their um, print that they would, try to sell that in for all of their Burger Kings and uh, Wendy's and McDonald's and things like that. So all of their advertising that you would see in those, we would draw those up back then.
Right, right, right. So I mean, you've worked, and I know this because we've had conversations in the past. You've worked on some pretty prestigious brand campaigns, and I'm not talking small little local things, brands and items and products that people have heard of. They know what these are. I don't know if you can or can't talk about them, but could you mention just some of the things that
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
done
I
ad
mean,
campaigns on?
I mean, so with that in mind, when I was at Tracy Locke, we had PepsiCo, and you know the little movie Star Wars. So
Oh, I think I might have heard something about that. That little art film that was done by
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
Lucas
Just a
Scott.
little something there, So when they did their big campaign with the Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Taco Bell, and one of the other ones. So we would do all of their big major movie displays, co-branding with the Taco Bell and the thing. So we would draw all of that stuff up. And funny thing is that it was so secretive, they could not show us any of the images of the movie, but they had a big long paragraph of describing the little robot flying guys.
Right.
And so they had a pretty good description on what this looks like. And even the who's the little fat guy with the big tail?
Oh,
Uh,
was it Boba Fett?
Boba Fett, yes, yeah, Boba Fett. So they would describe them, and they wanted part of that to be in the display, but I couldn't see what it looked like. So I
But
had
you
to
had to
use my own
compensate for
imagination.
it to where
I
they
had
would
to,
overlay it. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
I got really close. I think I still might have a sample of it, but I got really close to what they looked like in the presentation that we did for Star Wars. So Star Wars got to see my drawings that we was going to do for Taco Bell that was going to promote their movie,
Right.
and I got really close to a lot of their
Huh.
sketches or their concept that they was doing, and without even seeing it. So
Right.
I think that was a good, and of course I had to have somebody help me read the paragraph.
Right.
But
But it sounds like almost like playing a game of visual charades.
yeah,
Guess what? We can't tell you what we want you to draw, but we want you to draw something that looks kind of like this, but we can't tell you what it is, but we're going to
exactly.
describe it, but you can't see it, but we want you to draw something that looks kind of like that so it'll fit in with the That is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's just the world of advertising. I mean, what you see in a lot of the TV shows on advertising and stuff, it gets that crazy. I mean, it was a fun life when I was younger to do all the parties and the wind downs and things like that. But I definitely kind of like being out of that now. But it was a very crazy time,
Yeah.
and then even moving in there again, Pepsi kept upping the deadlines and kept uh, asking for more and more, and the agencies just lost the account by getting too much red tape, trying to create all these documents back to them to get them okayed and stuff. And I was telling them then, you guys are missing deadlines here. They're not going to like it. I mean, you could tell that they're there. And so finally, they pulled out and went to somebody in California, and so the whole Pepsi team were out again.
Wow. So that
But
basically was operational failure on the part of the corporation, not any failure on your part.
yeah, it wasn't a failure on my part, but I got to benefit the failure because I was now out of a job.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point,
But but
it
but
doesn't matter who lost the contract. The contract is lost.
yeah. But the turnaround on that is that I saw it coming, and I'm thinking, I need to start making plans for the future because it's not going to stay around. And so I started getting names from PepsiCo right then. And when that happened, I had these names directly, and I started calling them up and said, "Hey, I used to work here. I used to do this stuff for y'all. Let me help you. Come to me directly."
Right.
And that's how now I'm working for PepsiCo.
Okay.
In a contracting kind of
Right.
fashion.
Right. Well, and that's the importance of maintaining those human connections and those human relationships. Because like I like to say to people, there's no such thing as a corporation. Like, here in New York City at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, or, that is the New York Times office. But I say that's not like a big gaiju that's going to suddenly turn into a giant robot and start walking north up 8th Avenue. That's just a building. The New York Times is the people who work in the various departments in the building. Take them out of it, that's just a structure. There is no such thing as the New York Times. There are the employees in all of the departments of the New York Times who do all the work. And that's something I think is very important to understand. And that's another thing in terms of the failure guy. I want people to get in touch with and understand, the importance of understanding that it's just a part of a process. It's not who you are if a contract goes down or you lose a job for whatever reason in a corporation. Like you said, the management changes and then there's that top-down purge, and I got caught up in that in my first position at Lehman Brothers. I didn't realize it. My manager's manager was replaced, then the manager was replaced, and I didn't see the writing on the wall that eventually I was going to go because everybody goes. That's just what they do in the corporate world. you
Yeah,
know?
they hire you young and cheap and burn you out,
Yep,
and
yep.
then they hire somebody else.
And just as you said though, because of the personal connections that I made, with the exception of the job that I got after September 11, 2001, every job that I've gotten in the corporate world before I went to work for myself was a was a personal referral because of the human connections I'd made in each previous job.
Yeah, yeah, and that same here. You have to make that personal connection, and that's how you turn failure into profit or success. You
Right.
know, by looking at and foreseeing, what could happen and dealing with it and
Yeah.
working around it.
Right. And so yeah, you bring an excellent point. Failure, rather than oh my god it's defeat, it gives you the opportunity to assess. Once you've experienced failure a certain number of times, you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this pattern coming, and so I can see the writing on the wall. Let me prepare. Like the last time it was a failure, I wasn't ready, so I didn't see it coming and I wasn't in a position to find the next job. But now I'm going to write down those connections. I'm going to, get that list of contacts. So when this hits the road and crashes into the wall, which is going to, they're not listening to me. I'm going to be ready with my Rolodex. I'm going to be able to make those phone calls and say, "Hey, remember me? I'm Tim from so and so. I used to work for you guys. You have any projects for me?"
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly how it happened right there.
Yeah. So
And,
that
and,
is
and so like you said, now I'm there again. I am not the official Chester the Cheetos illustrator, but I am one. I am officially a Chester illustrator. So
okay.
I draw Chester that you might see at Sam's or Costco. Maybe not what they call the core brand Cheetos, but I do draw Chester occasionally, well, quite often, really, for other projects and things too.
Right.
So again, it's what you can see and who you can work with like that.
Right, right, and that's Frito Lay's, right? And
Yes, yeah,
and again, that's an international snack food company. That's not small change. That's not some local, kettle, a potato chip company. That's one of the major snack food companies on the planet. And that's pretty cool. So how did you get to the point of Chameleon Studios? Tell us a little bit about the genesis of Chameleon Studios.
well, we basically, when I was in school, the professor that took me under his wing, he said, no matter what you do, where you end up at, always have a side job. Always
Mm,
do, see, if it's just business cards or letterheads, we did a lot of business cards and the letterheads back then for people because, there was a lot of letter writing, I guess. But so we always had some kind of business, even though I liked the corporate side of the advertising back then. And so I always wanted that. But then when they let me go, and still, even then, they let me go at Tracy Locke and paid me more money and hired me back for less time,
wow. So fewer hours, more
fewer
money.
hours, more money, and still doing a lot of the same things until they finally totally lost, Credo completely. Oops, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Should have had that. But yeah, so with that, I've always had some kind of freelance kind of business going on
Okay.
that. And then once that last uh, one with PepsiCo went through, we decided to hit both feet running at that and just continue that as long with that uh, business. And then we picked up other uh, work too, but 80% of our business is PepsiCo. I do golf course paintings too.
Mm.
I sell a lot of golf course paintings, and then I'm getting some college golf courses contacting me now to do some of their lobby paintings and things like that.
Right.
So, which is
And in
kind of
fact,
fun.
as we were discussing before we started recording, that's your painting behind you.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
This is my whole studio. My whole studio. The floor is painted like water,
Ah.
and all the walls around is a New York City skyline.
Huh.
And so, as you can see right there is that's what's the Central Lake, Central Park.
Central Park. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's Central Park Lake.
the
Yeah.
lake. So I'm sitting in the middle of Central Park with all the sailboats. So this is my New York City for my wife.
Oh, so you weren't kidding when you said if it was her, if she had her druthers, you guys would be here in New York City.
Yeah.
But what I guess the city life's not quite for you.
Well, not. I like to visit, and I think if we had to move there, we probably wouldn't like it as well either. But we
Yeah.
just there for vacation, and so now we're down, down Manhattan and stuff, and that's all fun. But we
Yeah.
can't afford that.
Yes, it's a bit on the pricely side to live here, and also it's like my joke is constant exposure leads to contamination. I'm a New Yorker because I was born and raised here, and so every place is just too small and too slow. I remember my first out of town gig when I was an IT professional after leaving Lehman Brothers. I worked for a private consulting firm, and I did a gig in Washington D.C. area. And they've got an amazing metro because New York has probably one of the most extensive subway systems in the world. Their metro is amazing. First thing that got me was carpeting on the floors of their trains. I was like, oh, this would not last a day in New York. You could not carpet the floors of New York subway systems, and it's amazing. But then it was discovering that from midnight to 6 in the morning, the subway stopped running. I was like, wait a minute, the nation's capital doesn't have a 24-hour metro system? And it just kind of stunned me. And I was staying in a town called Falls Church, which is about 20 minutes outside of D.C. by metro, because that was where I could find a motel that I could afford. And after 8:30, they rolled up the sidewalks, and there was like the little the gas station that was open all night. They had a little, place where you could buy some chips and soda and something like that. And there was a Taco Bell that was open to maybe 10:30 at night, about a quarter mile, and that was it until the next day. And I'm a New Yorker. I'm walking around town. It's like they roll up the sidewalks, and it's just, I'm used to a 24/7 city, and it was like I guess that's not typical of everywhere, even though I figured it's just Washington, D.C. That's the capital of the world, or the country. It's the nation's capital. It's like, yeah, but it's kind of a small city compared to New York.
Yeah, yeah, it is really.
Yeah. And it's a little too much hustle
I
and
love the
bustle.
subway system in New York, so
Yeah.
I you can get anywhere with that.
Yes, it's cool. It takes a little getting used to, but you got maps. And here's the thing is New Yorkers are actually quite cordial. If you ask for directions, they'll help you, and sometimes they'll even say, "Hey, this guy's trying to get downtown on the D train. Who's got him? Who's got him? Oh yeah, I'm going that way. Hey, come with me, pal. I'll take you there. What stop you getting off? You know."
Well,
And that's
I only have good experiences with any people that I've met at New York. I was one of them. I had the map out. I'm looking at the map. The New York guy come up and says, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I'm trying to find. Oh, here, do this, and do this, and do this, and
yeah.
and so you know.
Yeah, we're pretty nice people. We're pretty cordial. Like I say, it's not that New Yorkers are rude. It's just that we're busy, And if you're out on the sidewalk and we're trying to get to lunch and drop off some dry cleanings and make a deposit at the bank, we got 45 minutes, and you're walking 5 abreast looking at the tall building. Says, "Hey, pal, just get out of the way. Two-way traffic on the sidewalk here, okay? I got something to do." But like I say, after work, you meet us in happy hour at a bar. We're the friendliest people in the world. And then the next round's on us. We really
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
and I even told you about my story that I stayed the night in Harlem. We was there in the brownstone in Harlem, and with some friends, and it was awesome. The cool brownstone. He was opening it up. He was remodeling it.
Yeah.
So the next day, I was going down to south, down to Manhattan, someplace there, and so we was going to just go get on the subway, and the guy said, "Oh no, wait, let me walk you to the subway, just to make
Mm,
sure." So he walked us to the subway, and there in
yeah.
Harlem, and that was pretty
Okay, now
sweet.
what year was that?
That was probably 80. two or
Oh, okay.
three,
Yeah,
four.
yeah, okay. Once you say the 80s, yeah, I understand why he walked you to the subway in Harlem. Yes, yes, it was a little, the city was dicier back then. It's much more everything's improved, like my joke is Times Square has gone from, Slime Square or 40 Deuce to, I call it Disney Northeast now. It's
Yeah.
so upscale and built up. But back then, there were parts of Upper Manhattan and even parts of Harlem that I wasn't going to be messing around with,
Yeah,
at
we need to get back up there. We need to get back up there and see the change, because it's been a while since I've been there. So
oh yes,
I did.
you would be amazed. It's truly transformed. Talk about coming back from the brink of failure. It's been pretty great. So yeah, in closing, what would you say was like a major challenge to overcome in being an independent graphics studio?
Well, what I realized is because of the whole computer industry is that I from school on I drew
Right,
by hand. I was drawing.
right,
Even in school, I mean, even in the last business profession at Tracy Locke, when I was there, I was still just a hands artist. So they had a couple of young kids they brought in to be our computer digital artists.
right.
And I could see then, as opposed to working on that little Mac years before that, this is the way it's going. It's
Yeah,
going this way. I need to make some changes.
right.
And so whenever I got my job done, instead of just goofing off or whatever, I would go into those young kids' offices and say, "Oh, how'd you do that? Oh, how'd you do
Right,
that?" And they
right.
and they just fresh learn. Oh, here, this is how you do it in Illustrator. This is what you do in Photoshop. This is what you. And so I learned how to work computers by those by just sitting back there. Hey, how'd you do that? That's
Okay.
awesome. How'd you do that? And so having that there, then that opened up. Okay, now I'm going to have to start typing. Not only am I having to draw, I'm going to have to type and add this body copy. I have to insert all this copy. So that all has to be done. So back to the dyslexic issue, make sure you spell check as much as you can, ask how even abbreviations or punctuation you have to, even though we had writers, we still had to make it fit and do some of that ourselves to do.
Right.
So that was one of the big issues. And then this thing right here, drawing with
The
this thing
mouse. Yeah.
was crazy. I hate drawing with the mouse.
Yeah.
So so
I
I so I finally got me
I
a
was gonna
pressure.
ask you. You gotta have a stylus. Come on.
I finally got me a pressure sensitive monitor, and because
Ah. So it is.
uh,
It's almost like come full circle again. It's the digital equivalent of drawing by hand, including because I have some styluses and tablets to work with, but they're not pressure sensitive. They're not full
yeah,
range or whatever have you. So it's literally and the beautiful part is it can be whatever type of implement you want it to be. Do you want it to be a carbon pencil? Do you want it to
yeah,
be a fountain pen? Do you want it to be a marker? Do you want it to have a sharp tip, a broad tip? Do you want it
right,
to be air,
airbrush,
airbrush?
yeah.
It can be
I
whatever
mean,
you want it to be.
I have all of the fancy airbrushes that you can ever have, but it still takes cleanup. It still takes making
Yes.
the frisket and all this. You can do it so much now on the computer so fast. And like you said, I can do oil paint, I can do acrylic, I can do watercolor, any kind of medium, but I can do it digitally. And
Wow.
that has just really changed my world. Uh, Cleanup is so much better by hitting that thing.
Exactly. You just control Z and no acetone required. Now, would you say that picking the brains of these young kids, would you say that your experience growing up and dealing with dyslexia, because let's face it, having worked in technology in the corporate world, there is an issue of older people acknowledging that the technology is getting away from them. My last full-time job, I was IT manager at an architectural design firm. And so they were using AutoCAD, the old heads, but Revit and Rhino were coming into 3D graphic design thing. And some of the older guys, because I was the IT manager, so I dealt with everyone, and they were just telling me their fear that because they couldn't or wouldn't really bridge the gap and learn as long as it was just 2D basically drafting, they were fine. But that 3D thing just escaped them. I'm thinking, you got these college interns that are, I mean, literally, this is their first actual real job since school. Just what we call just shoulder surf these guys. They'll be glad that someone with experience and whatever have you is going to pick their brain. They'll give you everything. So you clearly had no problem with saying, hey, how do you do that? How do you do that? And do you think that your experience of learning, having been a challenge when you were younger, got you past that a resistance of, yeah, I may be older, but you know what? I need to figure out how this works, and let me go to the source.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. In the world of computer, there's all these softwares that will do so many different things, and I probably have or have had 5 3D programs. And you're kind of right about some of that. Some of those are so technical savvy that it takes to deal with that I don't do. I do 3D, but I don't do them in a 3D program because some of those it doesn't feel as creative as me just sitting there and drawing it.
Right.
If I have to do that mesh and I have to pull and push and it just doesn't feel like a true drawing. And so when I'm doing any of these, like a display that would be down in your convenience store, they want to sell that display into that convenience store. So before they even make it, they want a pretty picture of that
Right.
display. So I can draw that up in 3D, how that cardboard folds and works and connects to the metal rack or whatever. I do all of that because I can see the how it's built and how to make it look right.
Right.
But then if they just want it to turn just a little bit, I can't do that.
Ah, I see.
That
I see.
that is where I fall. And I keep saying I'm going to take one of these 3D programs and just dig down and just learn it. But I can do it so much the other way that I just haven't had the time to do it yet. But I'm going to one of these days.
Yeah.
And I think that's all it is. It's just you just got to jump in with both feet and learn it.
Yeah. Now, do you think, to my question, do you think that the experiences of the challenge that learning was has in any way given you advantage in when now you're coming with the challenges and, reading the words off the page? It's like, here's a new technology, here's a new way of doing things. I got to move off of the actual pen to paper, and go into technology. Do you think it made it easier for you to go to a younger person and say, "Hey, could you explain to me how that worked? Could you tell me how that worked?" And I think, well, I'm the one with experience, and I'm the senior guy here. I don't want to go to this newbie and have them show me how to do it.
No, I'm all for asking how to do things and how to learn things, and like even with outside of what we've talked about so far, I do a lot of gardening. I do a lot of home repair. I do a lot of other stuff outside of this that I
Okay.
know how to do things like that. But I don't feel the time to put it up on video and make a YouTube video of it. But I'm sure
Right.
glad other people do because if I have a
Ah,
question, I just go look up, see how they did it, and
exactly.
okay, now I
Exactly.
can do it.
Right. YouTube is, and also probably just because of your learning modality, learning visually rather than reading step one, did step
It
1A,
is, yeah. So if I can just see how they did it, I can see it, see how to do it, and I can do it.
Right, right. So, the takeaway that I get from this, and I hope that the people listening along feel this way as well, it's that, dyslexia is maybe it's a challenge, but it's not a deficiency. It's not an
Yeah.
inadequacy. It's just a different way of seeing and perceiving the world. Some people learn, yeah, like I say, there's some people are auditory, some people are tactile learners, some people are visual learners, some people are. I love to read. I don't have a problem with that. I also can watch videos or whatever have you, but sometimes I'm looking at a video, I'm into minute 7, like, you know what? Could you just write it down with illustrations, of course, but just write, okay, this picture, this paragraph describes what's happening in this picture. Then next picture, this paragraph. I don't have a problem reading. Other people's like, no, 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 don't give me. They look at a page full of words, and they're not even dyslexic. They're just like, I get a headache. Can you just give me a 5-minute video and walk me through how to do it?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
You've heard of hieroglyphics.
yes.
I've been told I use timographics.
So what do you mean by that? Say a little more about that.
If I'm doing a note, I'll draw a little picture of what it's supposed to be, and do little call outs on that, or something to get my message across. I'll make notes in pictures.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I love to see some of those sometimes. And in the technical world, there was a thing for a while called spark lines, where they were how you would insert little miniature graphs or illustrations of data sets in just like in line with the text, rather than having a whole like a Excel spreadsheet and a thing, just a little this little thing, and that represents here's the just the this is the past quarter of sales, and then you have just a little like where a word on the sentence would be, they would insert just a little graphic, and that sort of fell out of favor. I thought it was actually kind of fascinating, because it makes it easy. You can just keep in the flow of reading, and every now and again, like you say, sometimes it's just easier to show me a graphic representation of what you're talking about than to write 5 sentences that'll explain the same thing. I could just look at it and say, oh, got it.
And like what you were saying earlier too. I mean, I am constantly learning, but not in the same way that you might be in your reading. But I'm
Right.
constantly learning through videos, through television, or through things that I look up, because I want to learn and know things. And I've been told, not to pat my back or anything, but that people feel that I'm intelligent, that I know things, and they ask me how,
Right.
because they know that I'm a dyslexic. And they said, well, how do you know all this stuff? I said,
Right.
well, I'm constantly learning and trying to figure out how to get
Right.
better and be, better than I was the day before,
Right.
just like, in our
Right.
group.
And here's the thing, Tim. It's not like you're intelligent. You are intelligent. As I said at the beginning of this conversation, you're a very intelligent person. I love our conversations. The fact that your modal how the data gets into your brain. Remember back in the day they used to have punch cards, and then it was magnetic tape, and then it was floppy drives, and now it's USBs and little SD cards. That's just how the information gets in. But the central processing unit, there's nothing wrong with it. Your cores are firing on all cylinders, and there's no problem there. So how the data gets in, it may not be the way the data gets into my brain, but it's the brain is working fine. There's absolutely no problem there. Now as we wrap this up, is there anything that you'd like to say to the folks out there who are listening or watching this, how they could get in touch with you or anything like that?
Well, I mean, chameleonstudios.com. You did my webpage, or still working on my webpage.
Yes,
We still
yes,
got that going. So I do want to, offline talk a little bit more about that with you eventually. But
certainly.
the job that you helped me get because of that, we're just wrapping up this weekend, finally.
Outstanding, outstanding.
So PepsiCo Global, we did some pretty amazing stuff over in Europe, and
Oh, wow.
every place like that, from that one little quick, you know,
Right,
landing page you did for me.
right.
So
Okay.
we're going to
Right,
improve on that.
right.
But no, I think that's it. If they need, some kind of painting, some kind of, business cards, even logos. I'm always open to do extra work like that.
Right.
So, that's
Okay.
Tim Gilliland, Studios Inc. right there.
Yeah,
That's
I've
me.
got to, for those of you who are not watching this on the video, I have his up there. It's Tim at chameleonstudiosinc.com and https:// of course, chameleonstudiosinc.com /2 which is the new page that we built for him. And so, Tim, I would just like to thank you so much for being my guest here. It's been a fascinating conversation, and as always, I learned new stuff about you. You grew up in a town smaller than my graduating high school class, and of course, always having that partner in crime that encourages you to be your best self and says, no, we're not going to Oklahoma City. We're going to Dallas, buddy. Come on. We're going to New York. Okay, all right, I'll settle for Dallas. It's so great. And of course, I will see you again inside the men's group, the CBX Nation. And, and again, yes, we will get to work, when we get around to
Yes.
it and working on your website and getting up. And again, glad that page, because full disclosure, folks, I just redid the home page of his website, but apparently that was enough for him to close the deal. And as you heard, he got some work all around the world, which was my pleasure to do. And, ladies and gentlemen, I just like to say in closing, as always, remember, that failure is just first attempts in learning using real experience. We are not failures. We only experience failure, and all failure is not getting the result that we originally expended, not getting the results we originally intended or expected. I guess I combined those two words together. And remember, it's only a failure if you quit. So remember, life is a race that you only run against yourself. There is no other competition, and the only person you're competing with is you the day before. So remember, never quit. Keep running. And until the next time, my name is Cornell Green, and I am the Failure Guy.
Yes, that's it.
No.
No.
Wait.
No.
This is just the play out.